When people are given something that they can fail at, that's where you have the problem. So I really try and help people. We follow the evidence. We both do this. We say, right, how can we get more of these foods that we know are good for your health into your way of eating? How can you do it in a way that's really, really, enjoyable, fits in with your life, etc. But it's got to have that I can't fail element to it. It's really got to have that. And if you say, goodness, you even see influencers saying, my children will never eat bread. Oh my goodness, like bread's amazing. If you have something you can fail at, that is what creates a binge restrict cycle. So you have to understand what your own boundaries are. For example, yes, if you are vegan, that's an ethical standpoint, you're not going to eat animal products where you can avoid them or whatever that is. But your idea of non-restriction might be, well, I still eat cake, I still eat fried food, etc. So I talk about implementing your version of non-restriction. So if you're not vegan, you're not vegetarian, your version might be, look, I'm going to eat in this, pretty Mediterranean, plant-forward way. I'm still going to eat, have the fried food sometimes when I'm out. I'm still going to have some animal products. It's just that I'm focusing on the 80-90% of what I'm doing. Not, oh goodness, I failed because I had a glass of wine.
All right, we're back. If you stumbled across this, welcome to the room. If you're a regular, cheers for coming back. I'm your host, as always, Callum Weir. Welcome to Plant Fueled. Today we're peeling back the layers on the absolute state of the world as we crawl through the end of 2025. We're looking at the trends we saw coming, and honestly the ones that made me want to bin my phone and go live in a cave. We've reached this bizarre peak in human history where nobody trusts a doctor with a decade of training. But everybody is taking medical advice from a 19-year-old influencer in a Gymshark stringer. We also discovered some of the better trends like fibre maxing. 2025 has been a year of self-diagnosis. Everybody's got a condition they found on a 15-second reel, and suddenly everybody's an expert on cortisol, seed oils, and why a potato may be trying to kill you. We've watched a carnivore diet morph into the animal-based diet, which is basically people just admitting they missed fruits and vegetables, but didn't want to admit they were wrong on the internet. It's a circus of misinformation, and we're all just sat in the front row, eating popcorn, and wondering why we feel like shit. Vanessa Sturman is back for another quarterly check-in. What I love about Vanessa is she doesn't just look at what, she looks at why. She's here to help us move past the noise of what's trending and actually look at the architecture of what's healthy and what a healthy life looks like. Not a hack, not a 30-day challenge, but a sustainable way of existing in a world that's trying to sell you a shortcut every 5 minutes. So, before we dive in, do the bits. Subscribe, share, give a star rating, whatever the platform you use allows you to do. Even send this to someone who's currently convinced their morning coffee is an inflammatory toxin. Look, you can book a therapy session and talk about your feelings for 60 quid. Or you can listen to this for free. It's faster and it's cheaper. Anyway, to Vanessa Sturman, let's dive in. Peace and plants. Vanessa, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Great to be back.
Yeah, I do think you're like the quarterly guest now. I think it's every quarter you yeah, so you're more than welcome to always be back on.
Something like that. He's counting. Just keep having me on. It's fine.
This year, we started off this year with a podcast about the trends that we kind of see in, the new year. The detox teas, the scams that you see, the, people pushing different regimented campaigns to kind of, get people on board for that January, and then February they fall off. And obviously that's gone. It's now the end of the year. And as much as we did see those things like detox teas, we did see those, skinny juices and things like that. We also saw a multitude of other things arise this year, more than we have, I think, any other year, because I think most people are now looking a bit more into their nutrition than they have done in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always good for people to want to take care. People are getting more ambitious about their health. But what comes with that is more of an ability to be duped and scammed as well, because people are more conscientious. They are saying, well, actually, how can I look after my health, my family's health? And that does mean people might say, well, oh, look at that expensive product that's promising the world. They might also think, and this is something we can talk more about, that they have done their research or they have listened to a trusted authority who's talking very confidently about the power of just one product to completely transform your life. And they might end up going down these routes and not focusing on just those really, really core habits that we still know loads of people are not doing enough of, that we know are actually proven to help your health and your long-term health.
I think actually one thing you've actually knocked on straight away there is the expensive items. If it's more expensive, does that mean it's better? Or is it cheaper? Does that mean it's worse? And I think we can look at that all different variations. You can look at that about food because, there's always going to be the more expensive version of that food, which may have a slight better quality. But also, if you look at things like, a lot of people are into greens powders at the moment, things like that, you can buy the, Morrison's Tesco, like £10 one, or you can go to the AG one, which is like, £150. Like, does the expense of, food make it that much better?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because if you challenged me and said, right, Vanessa, go and kind of eat similar to what you're eating, but make it really expensive, I would have no problem doing that. I would head straight down to the organic shops. I would buy every organic packaged product. I would buy the most expensive supplements. I could very easily make sure I'm spending, I don't know, £300 a week just on myself. I could probably do that and eat in the very expensive places as well. Equally, if you said, right, we're going to massively slash your budget and again, you're going to eat very similar to what you're doing, I could go and do that. Yes, fine. It might involve a bit more of, cooking absolutely everything from home, but I could also do it because it's not necessarily that things being more expensive mean that they're healthier. And there is this idea, and this is also this snobbery that we're getting around food that is not always linked to science, which is, the less ingredients, the better it is for us. And that's a really important conversation in this nuance of ultra processed foods, where we know a lot of ultra processed foods are not great for us, but something having more on the ingredients list doesn't make it bad. And there are some foods that have got more on the ingredients list because they're fortified with vitamins and minerals, and they actually potentially have better health outcomes for people, and they might be cheaper than the only one ingredient cereal, for example, that you might get.
I think as well, like, I don't think many people worry about the amount of ingredients on food until I would say the last 2 years, where there was a lot of orthorexic behaviour in supermarkets, where you'd normally get a topless guy or someone walking around a supermarket, picking up something, going through the list of ingredients. And a lot of these ingredients, for instance, were the longer name of, vitamins or minerals, but they didn't have the idea or the knowledge there to be like, hey, this absorbic acid is just vitamin C. It's just the extended name of it, but some companies like to put the extended name instead of just vitamin C. And I think that's confused people a lot more as well, is that people they've seen this rise of people being like, bad, because if it's got more than 5 ingredients in it, then it's got to be like the worst. And it doesn't show the nuance with what that means, because not necessarily fortifying ingredients or, making something taste good by adding more to it isn't necessarily always a bad thing. And there can also be health outcomes to that as well. It just depends what those things are made of, and also what those, who the companies are, what they're actually sticking in it. Like, obviously, we know, like, there's definitely going to be, cereal companies out there that are full of shit. But there's also going to be cereal companies out there that aren't full of shit, but also have a longer list of ingredients. And I think people are getting very confused because they don't really have the nutritional knowledge there to understand.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's absolutely nuance to everything. And these very general or actually rigid rules, right? And I've heard this one, if it's got more than 5 ingredients, put it back on the shelf. Now, there's multiple problems with that, because if I take something like a packet of pre-flavored lentils, and by the way, these are fantastic, stock your cupboard up with them, great for traveling. It has a list of, I don't know, 15, maybe even 20 ingredients. Now, a lot of those are the lentils and beans themselves, the herbs and spices. Now, one that's going to scare everyone, there might be a bit of sugar in there. There's a bit of seed oils in there. And goodness, overall, that product's really, really healthy. We know that we can have a bit of refined sugar and be absolutely fine. If we're over-consuming it, we're over-consuming our calories, then yes, we go into problems. But the product itself, we know, is linked to reduction of multiple lifestyle diseases, nice and filling, tons of fibre, flavourful and delicious. Our food's got to taste nice if we're actually going to carry on with great healthy habits. And guess what? You haven't had to cook that. They're pretty cheap in the supermarket and they often have good offers on. That is a fantastic product when we look at it overall. But if we isolate, and this is another problem and red flag when we look at influencers, this has a seed oil in. Now, not only do we know that seed oils are fine for a start, let's get that out the way. I don't want to talk too much more about that. But it's also the context of the whole product. You're not drinking 2 cups of seed oil by buying that product. It has some seed oils in, which we know are fine for our health. And the whole product is fantastic and has lots of things in there that we know we need to be eating more of. So it's that kind of nuance and understanding that when we look at a product that is missing from these shirtless, muscly influencers running around the supermarkets who need to be kicked out, by the way. Shirt on, please.
Yeah, I think seed oils have wrongly demonized, and I think there's a few people in general that did demonize these and it's kind of caught on for a bit. But the thing is, nobody's eating seed oils in large quantities. Like if your oat milk, for instance, has some rapeseed oil or some canola oil, for instance, you're not drinking a huge amount of it. You're pouring a tiny bit in your tea. So realistically, you're only having a minute piece of it. However, there's healthy heart outcomes to it. It's not this. If you drink this, you're physically going to just ruin your health. And I think this is the thing, people don't talk about the nuance as well, because somebody was like the other day that seed oils were used in jet engines, but they were also promoting, beef tallow. You know what else was, in jet engines? Beef tallow, but you didn't mention that bit. Like, it's very much, there's nuance to everything, and we can always miss out bits of information when it's cherry picked, and people aren't going to question it because they don't know enough.
This is exactly right. And I heard someone else say there's something that's in cleaning products that's also in your food. What can it be? Water. You can do this, you can do it with anything. This is why the nuance is really important. And I think, with something like seed oils, if you were to, I don't know, just have French fries all day, but cooked in seed oils, that would not give you particularly great health outcomes. Now, not because it's seed oils, because you are over consuming them. You're just having a load of deep fried food that's very high in calories. You're not having enough of anything else. That's why, not because it's seed oils, but we actually know if you were to cook them in beef tallow, the data would say you'd have even worse health outcomes potentially. So it's actually understanding these comparisons. It's understanding where seed oils are, because we also get, and this is where, talking about personal anecdotes is just really, really frustrating me. The number of times I see people say, well, I cut seed oils out and my face shape changed. And now look, it might have done if you lost some weight or whatever, there's various things there. But if you went and cut out everything that had, say, seed oils in, those people are probably cutting out a load of cakes and biscuits, a load of, I don't know, ready-made pizza or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, you're probably going to see results, not necessarily because you cut out seed oils, but you cut out, let's face it, lots of products that weren't good for you. You went ahead and you started eating more fruit, more veg, more beans, drank more water, did more exercise. Yeah, those are going to give you healthy outcomes, which is why we cannot rely on anecdotes. We have to look at the scientific data. But so many people don't know that they'll say, yeah, but look at that guy with his abs showing again in the supermarket, please leave. He said he cut out seed oils, therefore seed oils are bad.
I think as well with anecdotal evidence, like when somebody makes a huge change, like they cut out seed oils, for instance, or they cut out, various other things, they're also making huge lifestyle changes as well. So normally that person has then, gone and hit the gym and started working out and a multitude of other things. And all these things change your body structure, your face structure, like, how your health outcomes look. So if somebody's cut out, cake and, seed oils and that, yes, there's going to be health markers that are, going to go down. Or up, for instance.
Yeah.
And also, if that person has also, decided to start walking more, they decided to go to the gym more, those will all play into that. However, they don't normally mention that. They'll just be like, oh, it was this one thing. It was the fact that I restricted myself. It's the fact that I went on a complete elimination diet and eliminated everything that was there, where in fact, like, you probably could have had some of those things still and still had the same outcomes. Or you could have had all those things still and had the same outcomes, because at the same time you were making just different lifestyle choices to what you may have done, which could have been sitting around, not walking, not moving. But they only put it down to one thing, and that's the one thing that is also the most polarizing thing, which the most polarizing thing, weirdly enough, is always food, because food is the one thing we have to eat every day. Every single one of us has to eat. So it's, whereas not every single one of us has to move. Not every single one of us has to go to the gym. But the one thing that we all have to do is always the most polarized.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And you're totally right that, our changes come in bundles. especially if we're, we do one thing, we're often encouraged and motivated to do another. You say, well, I might as well walk a little bit more. I might as well eat a bit more of this. And also, if you cut something out, you're generally, even if you think you're not, you're generally adding something in, generally. So there are so many different things happening, which is why you are not a controlled experiment, which is why we have to look at the scientific data in order to understand, well, what do we see has, gives people improved health outcomes? What do we see actually has moderate health outcomes, but you're there claiming that it's completely transforming your life and giving you wings or whatever it is? That's why we look at the data. But the problem is with things like social media is personal experience and before and after photos and look at my abs now. I changed. I mean, one thing I'm getting on my phone coming up, and it's going to come up even more now because my phone's next to me and it's going to hear this, is a matcha powder. And matcha's been shown to have some benefits. You can add that into your nutrition if you want. And this person said, "Oh, I was told I looked 10 years younger in 2 weeks from taking this." So I don't even think a surgeon can get that result for someone in 2 weeks.
It's well, shame matcha tastes like shit also. It literally tastes like someone stuck the straw into the earth and just started sucking on it. But I don't think any food, I don't think anything can, age backwards in 2 weeks. Like if so, Kardashians and people like that wouldn't be spending that much on surgery. They'd just be taking, 2 weeks worth of matcha because it's cheaper. But it's not a sexy storyline. Like the idea that, you can drink this, green powder for 2 weeks and you may be able to reverse, Benjamin Button yourself. Like you're just, it's what, and that's the thing. This is where people will get so sucked into anecdotes because this is where I see one person do one thing, and this is where dietary patterns arise as well, such as things like the carnivore diet, and for the same, like the very strict whole foods, plant-based, oil-free diets as well. Like they can be on the same level because they've restricted everything. And I think every dietary pattern does have, the outliers to it that kind of have these people being like, "Oh, it changed my life. I did this. I did that. My whole life has been changed." But it is only anecdotal, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work for everybody, and not everything that you're going to do is specifically going to work for the next person. And you're never going to be that person. And also, you're only seeing a 30-second reel of what those people are doing. So there's going to be various other things going on that those people aren't showing.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think if someone has tied their identity to a particular dietary pattern, it becomes very, very hard for them to row back on that. And we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen with some of the big proponents of the carnivore diet, like Paul Saladino. Now, he does not want to let go of that identity. Now, he has moved to something animal-based. And I heard this wonderful expression, they're starting to microdose vegetables into their diets now when they realised they needed them. But that's also another problem. If someone is very rigid, they may not always be telling you the truth, even about what they're experiencing. They may say, "Oh, everything in my life is really great," and they may not be feeling that, and they may be doing a load of things behind the scenes that they're not telling you. Even if someone says, for example, "I never touch anything ultra processed or packaged," and you might be looking at you can, by the way, touch that stuff. Please go ahead. We all like to have a biscuit sometimes. They might still be doing that in the background, by the way. Like, you don't know what they're actually doing. Or people saying, "Oh, I don't touch anything that's in inverted commas toxic." This is another word that's very difficult. Many things are toxic in large quantity, depending on the quantity of that item. But then you see those people still going and drinking alcohol. Those people aren't even consistent with what they're saying that they're doing, which again is why please do not follow what one person's doing. You might get inspiration if you think that person is trusted and you think, "Oh, that's a really cool thing that they've added or done, or a really cool habit, check it's evidence backed." You can use that sort of inspiration, but it's got to be evidence backed, or you might be doing some things that are actually dangerous, not just for your physical health, but for your mental health. I think there's so much fear around food now that people aren't even enjoying it.
Weirdly enough, you brought up Paul Saladino, and this is the animal-based thing at the moment, and watermelon is now animal-based. Butternut squash is now animal-based. just call it what it is. It's just a fruit. It's just a vegetable. Like, you are just adding vegetables back into your diet. And I went onto a feed the other day, with a Reddit feed, about the animal-based diet. And somebody asked what exactly the animal-based diet was. And nobody could actually give a straight answer, because they are saying, so it's, meat, it's milk, it's honey, it's fruit, it's some vegetable. So you're just paleo. You're just an omnivore. Like, it's just an omnivorous diet that has a different branding. Because apart from maybe grains, which they've taken out, which would then consist on, I think, being a paleo diet, or maybe more of a ketogenic diet, that an animal-based diet is just an omnivorous diet. You're eating you're eating plants, you're eating fruit, you're eating meat, you're eating or consuming dairy. So you've just gone back and just rebranded something that majority of the population are doing.
Pretty much, and it's a more expensive version, because also it is, even though they call it animal based, it is omnivorous. It's more heavy on the meat products, and it's very, eat red meat every day, etc. Things that we know we if we want good health outcomes, we should be really reducing that kind of thing. So it's that heavier on the animal products, but it's omnivorous essentially. And again, I think what we need to understand is that people are selling things. Now, you and I both work in the industry, so yes, we both sell coaching. I am also a speaker. Yes, fine. We make money from that, but that's got to be remembered when you are listening to anyone. What are they selling? Are they selling a book on that? Are they selling coaching on that? Now, if it's evidence-based, that's absolutely fine. If they can actually help you, that's absolutely fine. But they need to hold on to that identity as well. They have a personal stake, literally a personal stake. It's so funny in that. So, that's why they've had to rebrand this, saying, oh, well, let's call it animal based. Would they get as many views? And this is the thing, so much is about views and clicks. Would they get so many views if they started to say, I'm just simply eating in a more balanced way because I've started to accept that vegetables are actually good for you? That doesn't make good content. If they start saying, oh, like, look at my non-toxic way of eating, let's still call vegetables quite toxic, and let's put fruit in there instead, all of a sudden it becomes more clickable, consumable. They've probably got their top off or whatever. That's the common theme. So if you ever see someone with their top off, no, that's not true. There are people who will still do that and be fine. But it's that money side of things. And this also kind of bleeds into this obsession some of them have, where they'll say, yeah, but doctors and the pharmaceutical industry, look at the amounts they're earning. When you've got this billion, hundreds of billions being earned by the wellness industry, we've got to look at this in every part and say, let's make sure this person is really genuine with what they are selling.
That's the thing. There's a lot of mistrust now with doctors. People, and I don't know why that is. I think there's a certain few probably doctors out there that have ruined trust to everybody, because they've kind of gone and said a few things that haven't overly been true, and everybody's kind of picked up on, hey, we shouldn't trust doctors for this, and this. And in some cases, I can see a slight bit of, with doctors with nutrition, for instance. I know that a lot of them only get like 7 hours nutrition, and should the information you get from them be trusted, it's hard to tell. Have they had the nutritional knowledge? Are they a dietitian? Are they a physician? Like, do they have any knowledge in nutrition? If not, then I assume, maybe might not be the best advice for you, because it may come from that 7 years of training that came from 20 years ago. However, people are then getting very ill because they're not trusting doctors anymore. And that's outside of the nutrition world. They'll be like, hey, I've got something else, but I'm now going to go see an influencer online because that person said they can help me because they've got some greens powder that's going to realign my fucking chakras. And with that, that's going to cure me. And is that going to cure you? Or you're just going to spend a load of money with this, influencer, where you could actually just get the medication you need to fix yourself?
Yeah, I think this is a really, really important conversation and a perspective I want to give on this as well. Because, there's this, why are people mistrusting doctors? And there are going to be lots and lots of reasons for that. And some of that is going to be because people are watching influencers online going, especially this very polarizing language. All the experts have said this, but it's actually not true. It's like, well, why are all the experts saying it, but it's actually not true? And you've apparently found out the truth. But a perspective I want to give on, say, like UK doctors, we have the NHS. The NHS is really, really fantastic. These poor GPs have 10 minutes with each person. They need to get through the problem. They're trying to understand the problem. They potentially need to save someone's life. Even if they wanted to have time to talk about nutrition, they probably don't have time. They've got to get a prescription written. Maybe that person has dangerously high blood pressure. Now, we know there's lifestyle things that person can do, but it is up to the doctor to say, what do I need to do in this instance? Now, the doctor can still refer to a dietitian, and they do sometimes do that. And that's absolutely great. It's this idea that doctors need to know everything as well, I think, is quite an unfair thing that we put on them when they have so much knowledge and so much ability. There are dietitians they can also refer to. They have so little time. They may also judge and be able to think, okay, this person's really struggling. This person's probably not going to make lifestyle changes anyway. That actually this medication could save their life, and they need to do what they need to do in that moment. And I think it's very unfair to think that there's this idea we are sick because of doctors. No, the medical industry is absolutely incredible. I'm so pleased it's got to this point because we are saving lives as well. So that is what they do. Does it mean that person can't bring in lifestyle things? We absolutely want them to do that. And I think the problem is also this division and dichotomy of either lifestyle route or medication. There's even these meme cartoons I see where it's got a huge line of people going to the medication kiosk and no one going to the lifestyle one. And I think someone's intention was good, maybe with putting that there to say please do lifestyle things, but I think it's actually quite damaging. It's quite a damaging meme because you don't want people to feel like they've failed because they've gone on medication. That could save their life, give them a better quality of life. Not everything can be solved with lifestyle anyway, but you can use both. And in fact, that can sometimes be the best thing for people. And we've got to integrate how we work. And an example is I did a webinar for healthcare professionals and doctors on health coaching, just on things they could help people build in these small habits that can go alongside with whatever they are doing as well, because doctors are interested in this. They are interested in, within the short amount of time, what could I maybe get someone to do? Get them on, if they need to go on medication, the doctor can decide that. Could I advise them to just chuck some beans into their next curry, even if that, that could be a beef curry or chicken curry? Could I encourage them, right, throw some of that in, throw some extra beans into the rice you're boiling, eat an extra piece of fruit each day? They could try and do that. They may not have time to do it, but doctors do want to help in these ways, or not all of them, but a lot of them do. But we have a system that doesn't always allow that. And I think we need to respect doctors for what they do and look at all of the factors that are making people sick, from the food environment, food policy, culture, income, time. Not everyone has time to make everything from scratch.
I think that's the thing. A lot of people are in a unfortunate position where they literally have to go with the quickest thing because they may have a job, they may have kids, they may have various other things going on. Us as well as health coaches, we are in an unfortunate position where those things for a lot of time can be made from scratch if we need to. But we don't preach that's a need. It's just if you have the ability to, that's amazing. If you don't, there's things that you can do that are like easier, that are quicker, that like, yes, there's random convenient things that you can pick up that are going to make your life slightly easier. But I do think, as you said, going back to doctors, for instance, like I think this all stems from the fact that after speaking to a few people in the doctor fields, that there's not really any rules and regulation about what the doctors can say in the States, in comparison to obviously the regulations we have in England, in the EU, where there's something they have to kind of stick by. And I think because we have rules and regulations to stick by, that people assume that they're being caged in and they can't give you the accurate information. And that's not the case. It's just that you've got the other side of the pond that is so polarizing, and they can have their extreme opinions, that the extreme opinions seem like the best opinions because they're allowed to speak out. They're allowed to kind of say what they need to do. Whereas that's not the case over here. And I think this is where this kind of misinformation of doctors comes from, because although they can give you the information that you need, they can't realistically tell you to overhaul your whole entire life, as much as they'd probably want to. As much as those things, they'll be like, hey, you need to cut this, this, and this. They have to help as much as they can. Whereas over there, they're like, you know what, you just change everything.
I completely agree. And I think it's also very problematic. And we know from people we talk to, people who come to us, it is not easy, by the way, to suddenly overhaul everything. Living that healthy life, because you and I are very used to it, and influencers can make things look effortless. And, you know, I go out and soak in the sun for an hour with, you know, my dewdrops or whatever it is, you know. It's not that easy. You've got all of these pressures on people. Things are even worse for people now with cost of living, everything like that, that it's just not possible for a lot of people to overhaul their lives and to do all of that. That actually, you know, that they need other solutions. We need to meet people where they're at. Even just someone starting to build in those habits of a few 10-minute walks a day doesn't look particularly sexy. They might actually think that can't be effective because I'm seeing that influencer do crazy pull-ups, and, you know, great if you can do some pull-ups, but they're seeing these other much more extreme things on social media that they maybe doubt that these very simple, less sexy habits, put your umbrella up in the rain and go for a walk, doesn't look. You never see anyone do that on social media. Maybe I need to do a video on that because I didn't see it on social media. It's those sorts of things that could really, really help those people. But we know there are so many pressures that many people, even if they're given a bit of motivation, even when there's a talk, and this is why I'm very clear that, you know, one talk on its own might help people change a few things, but you need more support for people, because people can be inspired. They might take away a few actions. Will it help them overhaul everything? And you don't necessarily need to overhaul everything. No, people need support, and we need to think about all the factors that are causing barriers in their life to better health.
I guess as well, there's people also want the quick route. People don't want the, you know, sustainable long-term health outcome. They want the short-term health outcome, and that sells it sexy. And this is why Ozempic exists, because people want that quick and easy. And I think Ozempic has caused a lot of problems as well. Like, yes, it's been great for a huge amount of people. And then there's people also taking it that I wouldn't necessarily say probably need to take it. And that's just coming from what I'm seeing online, but that's also caused a trend of obviously skinny talk as well.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think Ozempic is a great development. Anything that can help people is a good thing. And there are some people who've massively reduced risks of disease and all sorts of things by managing to lose weight with Ozempic. Now, I think the problem is anyone thinking that anything, by the way, is a quick fix. You know, that's a huge problem in itself. And, you know, we know that people still need to implement the right habits. If they were to come off Ozempic, the weight would just come back on if they have not implemented the appropriate habits. And if you are going to take Ozempic, now obviously you need to be talking to a healthcare professional, you need to make sure it's right for you, all of that sort of stuff. It needs to come with that package of understanding what you're eating. And I know there's some great nutritionists and dietitians out there actually who are writing about what you might actually eat when you're on Ozempic to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck with the calories you are having, because you're going to want to eat so much less, for example. It's so important you're looking at all of that. It's so important that you're strength training. These are all the longer term, non-quick fix things that have to come with it. It's really, really important. And I think that side's forgotten. And I think in general, when we hear anyone talk about lifestyle, weight management, etc., we're not talking enough about the bigger picture. What are those barriers? We know that what causes obesity and what impacts it is so many things, from where we live, income, culture, etc., etc. We've got to address all of that stuff, which is why more is going to happen at a policy level as well. But this idea that it's just one thing that's caused someone to be overweight is just not true.
No, that's the thing. Like, these quick fixes don't fix the initial cause of the problem. So, for instance, if you have unhealthy eating habits, or you don't know how to structure a plate properly, then there's going to be issues when you come off Ozempic. The same with if you've taken Ozempic, but you're also in a negative mindset. You may have depression, you may have anxiety, and that causes you to kind of binge eat. When you come off Ozempic, those things haven't gone away. those that you may have got the quick fix, which is amazing, but unless you sort out the root cause of some of the issues, these things are going to come back because you haven't implemented those things beforehand to kind of help you on this journey. And there's some missing knowledge there, and I think that's the thing. It's very much helping people to implement change while taking it at the same time, which is amazing that some people are. But at the same time, some people just think it's that quick fix, and I'm just gonna be able to eat less, lose weight, which realistically you are. But as soon as you can't stay on it forever, like if you stay on it forever, like there's gonna be nothing of you in you.
Yeah, I mean, I think doctors are discussing, can someone be on it for the rest of their life? And I'm not sure what the implications of that are, but regardless, what will never change is we have to have healthy habits within our life. We have to do the longer term stuff. If our mental health is awful, and there's so many reasons our mental health can be awful, some of it can be more circumstantial, etc. We've got to look at, what am I doing to manage this? What am I doing to manage my emotions? What am I doing to make sure exercise is built into my life? And that just isn't being done enough. And I think, again, because we see quick transformations, we don't see the continuous, because it doesn't get as many views for someone to just say, look, here's this really boring habit. I mean, I do this, is probably why I don't get as many views. Here's my really boring habit, everyone. And I pretty much do this for the rest of my life. And I think what I love that we spoke about before, and I know both of us do this so much with our clients, is like one of the top things, which is not about having a meal plan, which only a dietitian can do, but is this balanced plate, which doesn't have to be perfect, but if you've got the concept of it, complex carbs, lots of fruit or veg, some kind of protein source, ideally go heavier on the plant protein, and healthy fats, and balancing the plate. Now, even if it can't be perfect, and with some plates you just go, well, the most I can do today is just add some extra veg. That is an incredible habit and discipline to be in, because that's going to progress you even when it's not perfect. And that isn't looked at enough. And again, you don't even see much of that on social media, again, because it's a bit boring. It's not sensational. It's not saying, by doing that, you're going to lose, 3 stone in 3 months. It's not doing any of that. It's just saying, hey, like, this is going to help you build in more foods that we know are going to help your gut health. We know can help reduce the risk of disease. They're going to keep you more full. It's not as interesting. And that's probably why it's not talked about as much.
Yeah, I think you need it to, like, that's the thing, you need it to be sexy for people to actually want to be able to do it. Like, because telling somebody, just add some more veg, and people have a really negative association with vegetables. And I don't know why that is. And I don't know, like, I know growing up, for me, a lot of vegetables were steamed. So they were like, a bit soggy. They were a bit like, bland, like the steamed broccoli and green beans. It's not great. And I think a lot of households did this, and then people have like a negative association with the fact that these things are only disgusting, or these things can't taste good. And like, if I'm gonna add these things, it's just be boring and bland. Whereas there's so many different things you can do with them, whether that, char grill them, you can, season them, you can do a multitude of other things to them that aren't steaming them, that actually taste amazing, that can fit into your life without it seeming like a big chore, to kind of, have to add this green and red thing in there. I just need to just learn to, or experiment. That is the thing. Like, you're gonna like things in different ways. Like, I like broccoli, for instance, roasted or grilled or pan fried. Do I like it steamed? No, it tastes like shit when it's steamed. It falls to pieces. It's not enjoyable. Like, the same with people having a negative association with things like, Brussels sprouts, because they probably only ever had them at Christmas, where they've only been like steamed. Whereas, if you drizzle that in, like, agave and like some paprika and a few other things, and crush it a bit with a bit of oil and stick it in the oven, get them really crunchy, amazing. And that's still you hitting your 5 a day. That's still hitting your 30 plants a week, even if it's not in the most, the healthiest way possible. It's the same as, like, if you don't like your vegetables, stick some sauce on it. Like, if you like barbecue sauce or you like ketchup, stick it on there. Like, yes, it's not the best for you, but it's better than what you were doing.
I completely agree. And I see this as, and I know both of us kind of do this within our coaching as well, is that you've got, I think about it in layers. I have people come to me and they're like, oh, I want to get right up to here. And I'm like, whoa, we're gonna collapse. Let's just hold it back because we're looking at doing something for the long term. Sorry, not as sexy, but we are looking at the long term. And I talk about layering in. So it's like, okay, let's look at this balance plate first. Let's get the concept of that. Then let's make it super interesting and delicious. I had a recipe website for years. I'm obsessed with having delicious food. So it's saying, right, how can we make everything really tasty and really fun? And, you gave some examples there of what we can do to veg. Some other things we can do, say you're like, oh, I find cabbage really, steamed cabbage. I do sometimes eat steamed cabbage, by the way, but I'm going to give another example of what you can do. Right, say you grate it up kind of like a coleslaw. You get some soy yogurt with some salt, pepper, and crushed garlic, and you mix that up together, and you have this big garlicky, yogurty with added protein as well, coleslaw that you can have on your plate. Maybe it goes as part of a sandwich or something like that with some grilled marinated tofu that you can also buy pre-marinated from the supermarket. All of a sudden, you've got a delicious sandwich, and you're not just thinking, oh, I've got to bite into a load of cabbage. Like you were saying as well about sauces, right? The quickest thing might be take a sauce from the cupboard. If that helps you get your vegetables in, it's a healthy choice. But you could make a tahini and yogurt sauce and blend that up and keep it in the fridge. It will last, a few days or whatever. There's so many of it's when you start getting these little ways, then you can start adapting them. Okay, I'm going to have some different herbs and spices in that whatever yogurt dip thing I did. I'm going to blend in some beans or some avocado. And all of a sudden, it becomes easier to bring in more variety, bring in more plants. You've still got the flavor. Garlic is always your friend, even if it makes you stink. You come first, just so you know. So don't worry about what anyone else thinks. And you start learning these little things. And it could be for someone a steep learning curve to begin with. But once they're used to that, they're used to putting that stuff on their shopping list. They're used to making double or triple of it so it can go in the fridge and be used the next day. It's these sorts of habits that are so key, because we know that if you don't enjoy the food you're having, it doesn't fit with your culture, your social life, you're not going to carry on with those habits.
You need to find habits that you can implement and that you enjoy, that just feel like they are natural to you instead of kind of feeling like a chore. You need to find the things that you can fit into your life that make it work for you, not like that trying to fit into your life. You need to make it. You need to get it inside you. 2025, we've actually had some all right trends, I think. We've had some really shit ones as well, but like we've actually, I think, progressed a bit further than I thought we would. And there's a few things that have come up that I think we need to touch on, which is, for one, I think one of the biggest trends that I've seen is fibre maxing. I think let's break down what fibre maxing is first.
I agree. This was a good trend. Now, generally, I hate trends because, again, and we've talked a lot about this, it's this obsession with putting one thing over another instead of taking that step back and saying, look, there's a range of things that we need to think about. Let's be happy that one of the trends helped people with something kind of healthier. So fibre maxing, I guess, is how much fibre can I get on my plate? And, we know that less than 1 in 10 people are getting enough fibre. We know that fibre is really important for our gut health, staying more satiated, i.e. it helps you stay more full. And, it's helping you eat more plant-based whole foods, which we know is really, really important for our long-term health, improved performance, etc. So I believe it's like, not that I was following loads of influencers' videos talking about this, but hey, how can I get more fibre on my plate? Can I add more beans here? Can I add more veg here? Can I add more chia seeds into my oats, for example? Now, this is really important because it's getting people more of a variety of plants, which studies have shown is good for our gut health, helping people fill up on healthier food, etc., better for the environment. One of the things that probably isn't mentioned enough with it is do make sure you're drinking enough water so that you don't get constipated, for example. So the analogy I like to use is that in order for a log to move down a river, the river needs water in it. So just make sure you are doing that. But I think it was a good trend, as long as, again, you are still thinking enough about variety, Is someone doing it too quickly and causing any problems for themselves? It's this nuance that we need to think about. But yeah, it was great. Like, get fibre in the spotlight in that sense. And as long as it doesn't go down, this is the problem with the trend as well, is that what comes up often comes down. And what we really, really need is, and again, it doesn't get as many clicks, what are the constants that we should be getting onto our plate and into our lives that we know are evidence backed? So we still want fibre to always have a spotlight, even once the fibre maxing dies.
My only ever concern with fibre maxing was the fact that people will go and jump on that overnight after never really eating fibre. And then add in, a ton of beans, a ton of legumes, a ton of like everything, and then wonder why they're so bloated, they're so disrupted, they're so kind of like. Because as much as it's great to fiber max, you're giving your gut a ton of different nutrients, and you're helping your gut microbiota. However, when you're putting so much in there, there's this like constipation, then there's the bloating, then there's people thinking fiber's not good for you. Fiber's, it wrecked me, and now I have to go completely the other direction and cut out fiber because I really kind of put myself in a position where it wasn't the fiber's fault. It was just that you put so much inside you at once. And I think anybody, like even if you eat fiber on a regular basis, if you were to fiber max to the top limit, you're gonna feel uncomfortable, especially if you're eating things like beans, rice, lentils. If you're eating so much of it in comparison to what you normally would, there's always going to be that bit of bloating. Yes, you're going to be better off, but the people that have never done it before are going to feel so much worse.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think this is also why it's very important. If you experience certain feelings like that, please don't run to an influencer's page to diagnose you. Please go and see a professional about it. Please go, first port of call, go to your doctor or whatever it is. Please do that. Don't have someone say, you're going to end up on a page that says fiber's toxic or whatever it is. Make sure you're getting the right information. But I think what this comes back to, which we keep banging on about, is look, if you make changes slowly, if you build habits into your life in a way that is reasonable, you're getting used to them, you're doing it bit by bit, that is so much more sustainable anyway. We only want to make sustainable changes. So there's always going to be a problem with these sudden shifts that we're doing, which often people can't keep up with anyway, because say they are going to build more fiber into their life, and I help people do this, obviously. We need to do it bit by bit. We need to say, okay, what are some actions we can kind of do this week that would really, really help, and make sure that person is used to it. Now, it's also, they've got to purchase those products. So there's so many actions. It's not just a case of just add this. It might be saying, okay, actually, where's the best place to get this that's in my area or online that is not charging me ridiculous amounts? There's lots of things that person needs to think about. So slow and steady is always going to win anyway over, sudden, quick fixy, and then possibly, as you say, rowing back and going, fibre ruined my life.
And I think that's the thing. This is where we see people on this kind of carnivore trend as well, is because fibre ruined their life. Is because they just implemented so many different things, or they went completely raw vegan. And we know that when you cook things, it makes nutrients easier to absorb, it makes nutrients better for you. And I think when you consume a ton when you're not used to it, this is where people start to fail. This is where people start to, when they're on a plant-based diet, for instance, or kind of revert back, or kind of, start eating meat because it just didn't work for them. At the same time, we also see that when the other side of the community, you get the carnivore community, they're now adding fiber back into their diet, although they're saying it's not fiber, it is, because it's a plant. But yeah, I think if you're doing something, if it's an all or nothing approach, then there's always going to be a downfall to it. There's never going to be a happy medium.
Yeah, completely. I totally agree. And, that's one of my biggest problems with raw vegan. And that's why, we see so many people going from one end of the spectrum to the other. It's got to be doable. Cooked food is good for you, by the way. So again, just going back to the evidence, you see this extreme stuff. It's like, where in the evidence does it say that is optimal or needs to be done? Or where have we got in the evidence that cooked food is toxic for you? It just, that's why it's really important to actually follow the more sensible and evidence-backed advice, but also what is doable. Is it optimal that I eat some Oreo cookies and cheesecake? No, but it's optimal in the sense that I enjoy it. It means I eat mostly healthy and I have that other stuff, and it helps me make the healthier choices. So this extreme stuff just doesn't work. And we also know that kind of plant forward Mediterranean style way of eating. Now, when I say Mediterranean, I do not mean a ton of red wine, cheese, and drinking olive oil. By the way, those are myths. If you look at something like the Mediterranean diet, which has so much evidence behind it, it's a very plant forward way of eating. It is lots of vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains, etc. It's not super extreme. It's it doesn't have to be Mediterranean style food. It can be pretty plant based, pretty plant forward. Yes, it does have some animal products within it, but it's also the doability of it, which is also, it's always the most important thing. It's got to fit in with your life and give you the results long term.
Absolutely. And that is the thing. You need it to be sustainable. And that is, I think that's the thing that we all need to kind of think about, is what is sustainable for that person. And yes, I think the Mediterranean diet or going to, yeah, it's very much like the blue zone way of kind of eating is I would say the way forward in certain aspects, because it's the healthier diet in comparison to what most people are eating. If you're not going to go full on, and trend to like vegan, plant based, carnivore, whatever, the Mediterranean diet would be the happy medium. That is the one that's going to give you health outcomes, and the one that's going to be sustainable, the one that you can very much eat and consume, and hopefully have no real big issues because you've gone to one extreme or the other.
Yeah, completely. And the thing is when, obviously, we want more people to eat plant-based because it's brilliant for the planet and the animals and all of that sort of stuff, and can be great for your health if you do it well. If you do it properly, of course, it's great for your health. Same with any well-planned, evidence-based sort of way of eating. But when people are given something that they can fail at, that's where you have the problem. So I really try and help people. We follow the evidence. We both do this. We say, right, how can we get more of these foods that we know are good for your health into your way of eating? How can you do it in a way that's really, really, enjoyable, fits in with your life, etc. But it's got to have that I can't fail element to it. It's really got to have that. And if you say, I can't, goodness, you even see influencers saying, my children will never eat bread. Oh my goodness, like bread's amazing. If you have something you can fail at, that is what creates a binge restrict cycle. So you have to understand what your own boundaries are. For example, yes, if you are vegan, that's an ethical standpoint, you're not going to eat animal products where you can avoid them or whatever that is. But your idea of non-restriction might be, well, I still eat cake, I still eat fried food, etc. So I talk about implementing your version of non-restriction. So if you're not vegan, you're not vegetarian, your version might be, look, I'm going to eat in this, pretty Mediterranean, plant forward way. I'm still going to eat, have the fried food sometimes when I'm out. I'm still going to have some animal products. It's just that I'm focusing on the 80-90% of what I'm doing. Not, oh goodness, I failed because I had a glass of wine.
Mm. Yeah, I think everybody has their own version, and as long as it works within you. For instance, I know me and you, we still eat, cake. We still eat fried food. I mean, me and you went to dinner at Tofu Vegan. It's probably not it's not going to be the healthiest version of food.
We had a lot of seed oils, didn't we?
we had all the seed oils. All that tofu released my advanced feminine settings. It's just it was great, and that's the thing. Like, the thing is, we do preach about health, and the thing is, like, but we also know what is a restrictive cycle. So yes, you can eat healthy like 90% of the time, but you can go out and enjoy yourself. Go out with your friends and enjoy yourself. If you want a glass of wine, enjoy yourself. You just need something that works for you. I wouldn't say having works for you as in every day has to be the plant, which for some people that is. And, great if that's what you want. But if you're looking for the healthiest outcomes, eating McDonald's every day isn't the best option for you. Like, you just need to find those things that work with that. So like maybe cut down and add more things in. Like you mentioned last time, I think was, if you have a Chinese, split it into two and then add some of your own vegetables and stuff like that. So you can actually enjoy what you want, but also adding the things that are also going to bring in those health outcomes for you.
No, completely. And I think people forget about this hybrid approach I talk about. So I find it really funny when I have someone not funny. We can both laugh about it when someone says I was really bad yesterday, and I go, "Oh, did you kill someone? What happened? What happened? What happened?" And they say, "No, because I ate some like cake and pizza." I'm like, "Oh no, let's throw back on what is bad. Bad might be hitting or killing someone. You're not bad. You're not a bad person because you ate that. In fact, I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope it was blooming delicious, because it's really nice to have delicious food." And I think there's this, again, it's this division, this extreme of either I have a healthy meal or I don't. If you really fancy a flipping pizza from the supermarket, and look, believe me, I love that kind of thing, especially before my period. Oh my goodness. That's what, sometimes that's what I want to eat. Doesn't mean you can't, by the way, have half, put a load of salad, maybe make that yogurt, garlicky coleslaw thing to go with it. Make a load, have a load of tofu and some beans with it, add extra protein to it. You're going to feel better and more full, by the way, by doing that. And you still eat the pizza. And there is nothing wrong with this hybrid approach. Same with if you get a takeaway. Now, not all takeaways are necessarily unhealthy, but let's face it, a lot of them, they could be a lot more calorie dense, and some of them aren't particularly healthy. Doesn't mean you can't add salad and some beans to it. And it will probably save you money as well, because takeaways are not cheap, and a lot of people are struggling in the cost of living. So there are so many ways you can do it, and this is why we want this broader thinking. We want to make sure, and I know you and I, when it comes to actually coaching people, get to know the person. Where are they starting from? What's going to work for you? And the most important question, what do you love? What are the things that are going to make you really happy, whether that's the type of exercise you're doing, the kind of food you love, what are the cuisines you love? Right, let's focus on those and get those more, healthy, and add things to that. So it's bringing that fun side as well. And I think sometimes health can become so punishing, and I'm determined that it is fun, it is engaging, and it's going to work for each person.
That's the thing. It has become such a topic that people are so confused, but people think it's like health is evil, or some kind of like way forward. But like they have to think of every different thing they need to eat. They need to think of like a supplement stack. They need to think of like various other things, and because it can seem so confusing that people treat it like a punishment instead of what it actually is, which is it's very nourishing. And as long as you understand the basics, and it doesn't have to be 100%, but as long as you understand the basics of like how to build a plate, how to find your protein source, how to find your carbs, how to find your fats, how to structure where you're not overeating to the point that like you're uncomfortable in yourself, taking the supplements that you need, and various other things, because there's no cookie cutter approach to it as well. As you said, like every person that you work with, how I work with, is so different. You need to understand where they're coming from. Not everybody's going to have the best knowledge on nutrition. Not everybody's going to have the best knowledge on lifestyle. Everybody comes from a different background. People grew up in food deserts, where if you grew up in a food desert, like you actually trying to look after your health is amazing, because you haven't had that. Like that is something that is going to be so new to you, and it can be a starting point, and you can be like in your 30s and your 40s before this even is considered. Whereas people are in better positions, and everybody's on such a different trajectory that depending where they're coming from can either seem like it's a big task or just a small kind of I'm just updating my knowledge. But the fact is, as long as it isn't given to you to be overwhelming, then it can be enjoyable, and it will be enjoyable to become the healthiest, best version, thriving version of yourself.
Yeah, I completely agree. And every person's really different. And this is why I talk about this foundation and building layers that looks different for everyone. I mean, for some people, just building an extra fruit and getting some frozen berries is a huge change for them. Or they're snacking, a very simple one. They're snacking on bread and butter. And it's like, okay, we don't have to do anything grand here. Can we just put some peanut butter or almond butter or any other nut butter on instead of the butter, and a piece of fruit? Would that work? Actually, yeah, that does work. Or some hummus and a bit of tofu, whatever. We can keep changing it and switching it up. But it's also this environmental side that's really, really important, depending on where people come from. Now, I know I'm very lucky that when I go home to spend time with my parents, They are both fully plant-based, but even if they weren't, it would still make it easier because they are very into home cooking, healthy food. If we go out, we all sort of say together, oh, what could we just pack in the bag? We are going to go for a meal, but what could we pack in the bag so we've got some healthier snacks during the day? Then we'll still have some nice food out because we love, doing that as well. It makes it so much easier. Friends that I travel with are very into their health as well. So we're all on board with saying, right, let's get to the supermarket, stock up on certain things, cook some things at home. That makes it really easy. Now, if you are not on that journey with other people in your household, we need to understand that that is going to make it harder for you. If you are in that food desert, it is going to make it hard for you. And actually having a coach, shameless plug here for us, Callum, having a coach that actually understands the bigger picture in that environment helps you take steps for you. And, I've had some clients say to me, oh, other people on your program, this, only as far on as me at this point. I'm like, I'm not here to compare. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what Joe down the road is doing. This is about making progress for you, and everyone makes progress at a different level. And for some people, yes, you mentioned before, some people just want to optimize. They're already doing, they've already got quite a bit of knowledge. They're doing quite a bit and they want to get to the next step. It is an amazing achievement for you to have just added those few things in, sometimes just in the first week. And actually, one person said to me, this is the first time I've had a weekend where I'm not binging and then starving myself on Monday. Now, that was purely by getting on that balanced plate piece of work and just saying, right, let's look at your food, get it more balanced. This person understood what foods were going to make them more satiated, understood actually it is okay for me to have, some cake and things like that. It wasn't super difficult, but the most important thing is that this was built into her life in an imperfect way so that she could carry on with that. And that's the real key.
That is the thing. Everybody is on their path. Everybody is looking at health in different ways. So comparing yourself to somebody else, especially when you could be comparing yourself to a 20-year-old and you're going through perimenopause, it's not going to be the same thing. It's going to be so different. You may have different symptoms. You may have, an underlying health issue. You can't compare yourself to a different person. Everybody has to take on their health in their own various ways and what works for them. And comparing when you're two different people, it's the same as people comparing themselves online to fitness influencers. Even if you worked out exactly the same as that person, you're never going to have exactly the same result. You're never going to look like that person. And that goes the same with health. Whatever you do, you're never going to be that person. Even if you follow the exact same regimen, you're never going to have the same outcomes. Everybody's doing very different. Some people find it harder to lose weight. Some people find it very easy to lose weight. Some people have, high metabolism. Some people don't, and that's fine. But it's just that and I think we now, I think due to social media, that we compare ourselves to others a lot more than we ever used to. And because we're so confronted with everybody else, and you see somebody's weight loss journey, for instance, and you'd be like, oh, I want that. And you ask them what they've done, and they done a multitude of things, but that doesn't always work for that one person. And it's not going to work exactly the same because you may have such different, variations and things going on in your life. And I think we're at the moment, theft is very much, comparison is the theft of joy. It's very much, we have what we have.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think also on the how people look side is a really important area to talk about, because what people talk about a lot when it comes to results is how they look. Is I now have abs, my face now looks different. I've heard these blimmin' matcha ads that I keep getting. Oh, I used to be bloated every day, then I changed this one thing and I'm no longer bloated. Everything is about how someone looks. I used to look pregnant all the time, now I don't. And that does not necessarily speak to long-term health. You can have someone who looks really good, maybe they've got shredded abs or whatever it is. That does not necessarily mean they're healthy. How you look does not necessarily equal health. But the problem is that a lot of people want the results because that's what's put on social media. They want the results that look good. It gets the most clickbait. Watch my transformation, for example. You don't know how happy that person is. You don't know what unhealthy practices that they have done within that. You don't know anything. You don't know if that person, by the way, has loads of time, huge inheritance, and is child free. And it's a lot easier for them to do it than someone else. And you're completely right. Comparison is the theft of joy. And we need to look at, right, what are your goals. And a really important part of this coaching is saying, right, fine, you might want to lose some weight, and it's completely fine if people want to, completely fine if they don't. We need other goals that are unrelated to that are unrelated to how you look, that might be to do with, I don't want to be confused about food anymore. I want to be happy and not have the mental load of food. I want a bit more structure in my life. I want to be able to enjoy my relationships. I want to have more energy. There's so many goals outside of I just want to look good, which is, not discussed again on social media, probably because it's not interesting enough.
We mentioned obviously fibre maxing being a great one of the better trends this year. However, I do have quite a few of the worst trends that I've seen this year as well. And actually, weirdly enough, the worst trends do obviously outweigh the good trends.
Always.
So we have protein intake still getting higher and higher and higher. So people are doing 3 grams of protein per body weight, and I'm like, why? Anything after 1.6 doesn't really kind of do anything unless you're really optimizing for like bodybuilding, for instance. That's actually one of the least. That's the least worst one.
Oh my goodness! So it's all downhill from here.
Downhill from there. Coffee enemas.
Oh God, yes. No, and just no in every way. And again, it's also listening to these health claims. It's very anecdotal. I did this and I experienced XYZ. Please, just all I can say is please don't do it, and head to your doctor instead if you've got a problem that you think needs to be solved with a coffee enema.
Also, drink coffee the normal way if you're going to drink coffee. Don't stick up your asshole. There's no reason. Just the thought of the burn, or
all of it sounds awful. And look, I love coffee. By the way, drinking coffee from my mouth, just to make that really, really, really clear. And I think coffee also just in itself gets a bad name. We know that having some coffee is associated with good health benefits. Coffee also tastes great. This is another thing. Flip and have what you really love. I think even if I found, even if I thought one coffee a day wasn't good for me, I'd probably still do it because I like it.
Exactly the same for me. If I found it wasn't the best for me, I don't care. It's a small part of my life that I enjoy.
Exactly. Let me have it.
Also, going with the whole coffee enemas, it's in the same area. Going out and using sun on your bum in the mornings. People, do you know about this?
Yeah, So I've heard of some influencers talking about sunning their genitals in general.
Sunning their genitals and bum hole. They kind of go out at sunrise naked, spread their bum cheeks to the sun because apparently it gives amazing health benefits. Now, I don't know if there's any science behind it. I haven't really looked into it too much. But I'd assume you'll probably get the same benefits from taking some vitamin D or just going out in the sun or just eating a healthy diet.
Exactly. I mean, getting out within the first hour of waking, getting out for 10 minutes can help your circadian rhythm. That sort of thing is great, And by the way, if you're going out generally, please also do not listen to influencers who say you don't need sun cream and sunglasses and things like that. Yes, of course, we do need some sunlight. That's really, really important. But this whole I need to be naked and spread and all of that kind of stuff, please just ignore that.
I think we've already touched on animal-based being a thing. I think also, I know there's something that got brought up earlier before we jumped on is skinny talk.
Oh, yeah. And we've been talking about this, how this obsession with body image has come up. And obviously this is affecting probably women more than men. I know there's a lot of pressure on men in their bodies in different terms, but this idea that we should all be really skinny. I've seen, even what has really upset me about this actually is, again, we've talked about how damaging these what I eat in a day videos can be, that are often, by the way, not even true. You can't even trust that's what someone is eating, and they're always going to show you the best of the best. And I've seen these influencers that break down and say, oh, let me look at this person's, let me analyze this person's what I eat in a day. And some of these people are eating ridiculously low calories in a day to maintain a model, in inverted commas, a model-like physique. And these apparent, nutrition professionals or whatever, they're obviously not, are not even calling out, look, this is obviously quite dangerous. Like, why is this person doing this? And instead, they're just kind of being very neutral about it. And actually, we need to call out if, calling out the why I eat in a day videos can be harmful and encourage people into this comparison side of things and maybe into unhealthy habits. But they also need to be calling out, this person is massively under eating, actually, and this person probably needs help. So I'm very, very disappointed with Skinny Talk, and I think especially for, it can damage everyone, but especially more vulnerable people and maybe younger people, it's just absolutely horrific.
I completely agree. And I would say as well, like, as much as that is focused on females, I think on the other end of the spectrum, guys have different versions of it where we're then, pushed to get unattainable figures because people don't realize the difference between what is roids and what's not roids. These days, we're very much getting as muscular as possible, which is great. If you want to get muscular, amazing. Like, I think there's a large majority of guys would like that, but but the understanding of not knowing what's actually attainable as a human physique, and a lot of people lying about, what they're taking, whether that be tren, whether that be steroids, whatever it is, to get a physique that you cannot get without some kind of growth hormone inside you. And so I think we have a different end of the spectrum. Ours is very much get as big as possible, whereas with women, a lot of the time it is get as skinny as possible. There's no kind of middle ground for it at all.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's different pressures on both. And there is this idea as well that if I do a certain exercise, I should look amazing. Exercise isn't necessarily, of course, people might work out and use exercise. It's okay for people to want to work on how they look. Like, that's absolutely fine. People want to kind of, in inverted commas, look their best, but it's been very skewed as to what that means. And it's completely fine for someone to do certain exercise and not necessarily, in inverted commas, look like they do that. And you see a lot of that criticism online as well. You see people who are maybe personal trainers who do not have what other people would consider the ideal body, and you get the comments saying, oh, well, if I worked out that much, I'd want to look like XYZ. It is not about how we look. And it is also very important that we are encouraging people to do exercise they love without the looks basis. So you get people saying, well, can I do yoga because I'm not flexible? We all have to start somewhere, and you may never be able to touch your toes. You can still do yoga. It is for everyone. I think we forget that you're not necessarily good at something when you start. Just because you want to start doing strength training doesn't mean you have to be able to lift really heavy weights. That's another comparatonitis, made up word, element that we've got to doing any of this stuff. You're still going to get the benefit if you go out walking, lift something. It doesn't matter whether it's the same as someone else or not.
Completely agree. Vanessa, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here again. I feel like we've always got a ton of topics that we can never fully cover. There's always a ton, and I could always speak to you forever. However, for the people listening that want to know more about you, want to find you, want to work with you, where can people find you? Because the names of places have changed.
They have. So first of all, I always enjoy speaking to you, and I know there's still like a load more things in my head going, we didn't talk about that, so we're gonna have to sorry, but you're gonna have me on again so we can talk about the things that we didn't talk about. Now, you can contact me on any social media platform. Even if the names change, you can still just type in Vanessa Sturman, you'll find me. If you DM me, I will respond. But on Instagram, I am now Vanessa for Health, and 4 is FOR, by the way. But you can also find me through my website, vanessasturman.com. You can send me a message through there. And if you just want to book a call in terms of working with me through a message on Instagram or any other social media platform, you can do that. And we can just discuss your goals and, see if there's a good fit.
Amazing. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for you and your podcast and your work, and just great we can have these discussions.